say, and I tell, nobody in particular. I was having a conversation with Joel Beta, and I tell him, I'm like, damn, bro, I got all this money on the street that I need to get, but I can't get it. I got nobody out there. I don't know. I can't get a hold of anybody.
Back against the wall, CL20's knocking rated. IGI's tripping, validated, shoot ready.
That got me caught up, and that's where their resentment is directed at those individuals.
I go about my way. I can't even get people to do a music video because everybody's like, bro, I'm afraid somebody's gonna follow you and shoot you, and they're gonna shoot us. And
over at him, and Craig's not even tripping on him. You don't say nothing about him, don't say nothing to him. But as we're walking, I look over at him, and sure enough, my mentality, I got that bully mentality at that time. I look at him, and I'm already thinking, let's get this fool. And
hey, yo, what's good with everybody, man? I hope everybody's having a productive day, feeling blessed. And like I always say, it's one life, one chance. We only got one chance to do this right. Let's get it done. So with that being said, episode 2, Black Widow Podcast. You already see who's on the other channel. Go ahead and introduce yourself, my boy.
That's right. You guys know what it is. It's B from Boxer from Paradigm Media News.
Thank you for being a guest. Thank you for another great conversation, bro. And let's get right into it for the entertainment of the viewers. Now, what I wanted to talk about in the beginning was La Chicanda. When me and Boxer went over for a little bit, it's something that I want to elaborate on myself, my own interpretations. But I did bring it up. The first vacancy in the OGB was Chente, right? So I wanted to talk to you about like what becomes of people once you see these vacancies. I know a lot of these carnales that were back there and back in the days, they had been there for quite some time. They have been slammed down in Corcoran Shoe, Pelican Bay Shoe for quite some time. So obviously those positions don't become vacant for a long time. You hardly ever see any movement in the COC. The way I looked at it, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So usually when you're in a position, you're really there for long periods of time. So why do you think it is that a lot of these carnales have been sitting there all these years, that once a vacancy happens, whether it's defection, whether they got sent to the feds, why do they all of a sudden becomes a clash of the egos where everybody wants to fight for that position, even if they're underqualified, even if they're uneducated and they have no experience in these positions? I noticed that a lot of carnales will be quick to start arguments, start disputes, start debates, and fight for these positions when the overall agenda, it doesn't matter who's in their position. It's all about, NF law, NF constitution, the organization, the people on the yarda. But sometimes these disputes and these civil wars, everybody else gets affected in the long run.
Yeah, they do. But, you said it yourself, bro. It's egos. It's all ego based, man. Like the perfect example is what happened in the D facility dilemmas, bro. When there were vacancies and you had vacancies, and then you had other guys like Smiley that were trying to create positions for themselves. But it was all because they felt like they had established themselves within the organization. There was, there's always C's are always competing against each other. A lot of them are older C's. They get into that, that mindset of I've been around, I've done more than you, I got more status than you. Those are the kind of clashes that start those conflicts, like the D facility dilemma between Smiley and Pantera. That's what it was all based on. It was based on ego. They weren't looking at it as like I had earned this position, or these positions, they get voted in. It's not somebody getting put in that position because they feel like they deserve to be there. They're voted in. It's a privilege to take on a responsibility like that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Honestly, after reading that and hearing about the D facility dilemmas, it just goes to show that a lot of these dudes that we look up to, a lot of these carnales that we praise, that we worship, that we tend to look at as, like you said before, modern day gods, we want to aspire to be like them. But we never know the true aspects of what goes on within the organization or becoming a carnal once we're a carnal until you see these situations transpire. But most of the time, a lot of the gente are left in the dark. We don't know about these civil wars, unlike the state and fed war that's been broadcasted everywhere and been talked about and has got a lot of people hurt, which shifted the movement and the agenda in different directions for so many years. But I noticed that. But I even noticed that on the yard when it comes to norteños. Back then, hermanos, oh, if I had 8 years, I'll rank you, bro. Even though the bounds say no rank or file, you're not above anybody else. There's no rank or file, no matter rank and file. But still, we would always look at it like, oh, you only been a brother for like 2 years, bro. You don't know nothing, bro. You ain't even got that much say so. Sometimes with lack of experience, they wouldn't even be provided a voice anyways. And I have status on the yard. So why am I not included in the affairs and what's going on with the yard? Even though I hold high level positions, nah, the authority in charge and his second in command are pretty much making the decisions, giving it to the rest of the Norteños. Norteños have to do what they are told to do. I see the same thing for Carnales. They're gonna fight for these vacancies because honestly, I think once you reach the point of being a Carnal, and I'm not gonna say this in a bad fashion, but I understand why they would develop egos because I've seen it done with norteños, and that's a way low level of authority as opposed to carnales. Everybody feels like they're going to be entitled to these positions, and what they forget is that they're forgetting to overlook the greater aspect of guiding and directing and being leadership for the rest of the people while they're up there fighting over vacancies. And when I seen it with Brown Bob and Old Man Rafa, one wanted to increase the strength to be equal to the Mexican Mafia because obviously the feud and everything that was going on in Pelican Bay and Corcoran Shoe, the Emmett was just, like I told you before, 10 years ahead of us. So while they're arguing, you have Omar Rafa wanting peace. And I was wondering if that argument alone, these two carnales that were probably the remaining two highest level positions besides everybody else in the OGB, was their feud, did it start enough friction to have everybody kind of side up? Because it did say Omar and Rafa had secret carnales pushing them to get this peace treaty done behind the scenes.
Absolutely, absolutely. There was a lot of them that were secretly behind him because they believed in his agenda, the things that he was trying to push. However, they didn't want to stamp it. They didn't want to put their name on it because there was too much bad. There was a lot of bad politics that came with it. They knew they didn't want certain people to know because you just got a lot of cutthroat politics back then in those days too, bro. If you backed up somebody and you were on board with it somehow, some way, that would come back on you. You know what I mean? So a lot of these guys are like, I'll back you and I'll push you, but I want to remain anonymous, bro. You know what I'm saying? And I'll be an advisor or I'll be somebody that that you can come to and we can talk about it, but I don't want to be out there, in the mix like that. But yeah, Rafa, he went about it the wrong way though. He had a good vision, and the things he was trying to accomplish it was it was a positive thing. And again, a lot of that was, he was the type of carnal that really believed in the raza, bro. He wanted to see the raza come together. He was almost a visionary like Cheyenne. I would compare him to somebody like that because Cheyenne he had a vision, and again, this was the Mexican Mafia's best visionary. He had a vision to create this super gang, all raza from southern and northern California, all gangs all together, just working as one. Which a lot of people weren't on board with that, but that was his vision. Rafa was the same way. He didn't believe in raza killing a raza. You know what I'm saying? He didn't believe in that. He was the kind of see that if you were around him, you didn't use derogatory terms of that we use towards Sureños.
Yeah.
He looked at us, hey, that's your brown brother right there. They the same blood that's running through their veins is the same blood that's running through ours. His whole thing though is he was trying to push an agenda at that time that there were too many bad politics going on, and he tried to do it on the unders, on the slunders, without Brown Bob knowing about it, and that was taken as an act of treason. You're over here talking to high-ranking Mexican Mafia members about a peace treaty, and we're not on board with that in the first place. That's a decision that we need to make as an organization. But you embark on this journey to establish the peace treaty. You're already to the point where you're in contact with the governors. His
Pete Wilson.
Yeah, Pete Wilson at that time. His what do you call it, man? His the name's not coming to my mind right now, but basically some of his advisors, they wanted to use some of Pete Wilson's advisors as mediators to bring, the Mexican mafia together, in the NF together, and you know, their whole thing was like they shot him back a one liner. We don't make deals with gangbangers. You know what I mean? So he had good intentions, but the way he went about it was just, it was wrong, and it ended up hurting him. He ended up getting deemed behind it. Brown Bob found out about it. He was like, you know what? This is an act of treason right here, and he paid for it with his career, man.
See, that's the thing, right? I play the devil's advocate when I watch the video, and I said, look, hypothetically speaking, say if the governor did get back and said he was willing to work in efforts with these both organizations to get him released from the yards.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you said a lot of people were secretly behind pushing this carnal, but since it was labeled as an act of treason, he got expelled, he got hit, he got pushed away. A lot of other carnales, stood behind and watched that happen. And that was the point that kind of got me aggravated. Like, bro, like, if you were all for it, it's not like you were going to split the organization in half. And if you were all for it, you don't have to stamp it. You could just say, look, I encourage it. But if it goes bad, then it goes bad, bro. Don't be mad if the Mexican mafia disagrees, or Pete Wilson disagrees, or if it doesn't go your way and it doesn't work out. Don't be mad about it. But
Yeah.
I'll encourage you to do it based on we see eye to eye in the agenda and your vision. But when it went bad is when they had nothing to do with it. They wanted nothing to do with it, and they never signed for it. And that's the kind of part that kind of got me mad. Is like, you can encourage somebody on a righteous reason, but then fall back on them when it didn't work out in his favor. But if it did, then I'm pretty sure a lot of carnales would have raised their hand and been like, hey, yeah, we were on board with it, bro. We supported him, so we're all part of his vision too. And that's the part that kind of aggravated me. But that's the kind of part of dirty politics that I talk about, that you talked about before, how you just recently said, if it doesn't work in your favor, you're going to take a big fall. But also, you have to answer to somebody. You're going to mind somebody. Everybody answers to somebody. That's what the organizational body was for. Mm-hmm. That way stuff like this didn't happen. So when you undermine it, as I said in a lot of my videos, if you disacknowledge and respect the authority in charge, people do get hit for that.
Yeah, bro. The other thing though is, like you were saying though, a lot of C's were behind them, but I think the majority weren't though too. Is the other thing I didn't say is and then you did in argument for those guys, they did tell him, you're fighting a losing battle, man, and you're probably, when the shit comes back, that's why they didn't want to stamp it. They're like, this right here, I'm not trying to see my career get messed up, behind this right here. There's a lot of them, they kind of seen it, bro, that the organization was moving in a different direction, and that's why I think it was out of fear that a lot of them didn't want to stamp it. They're like, man, this is, I see what you're trying to do, and I believe in it, but at the same time, it's a dangerous path to take, man, and when it gets crazy, I don't want no part of it. I don't want my name out there. So that's what he was up against. But Rafa was, from everything that I know about him and have heard about him, he was a stand-up type of individual. If he believed in something, he was going to push for it, bro, regardless to the consequences. If he felt like it was right and it was just, that's what he was going to push for. And that's what he did.
So I would say this then. So what he went down for wasn't in vain then, regardless, because what he was doing and how you described him as a visionary and somebody who was a firm believer of United Raza, then obviously it wasn't in vain. Even though he went about it the wrong way and he lost his career and, things turned out the way they turned out. You can honestly sit here and I think a lot of people would still support that ideology just based on the fact where we're at today in 2023 with the peace treaty, the end of hostilities, and how that worked out. So what this man tried to do 20, 30 years ago, these people nowadays, the new modern generation, the new COC, the new brass, completed it, but yet his career has been gone because of it. So I do encourage that kind of, even though it was an appropriate step and he did violate a lot of protocols, sometimes when you believe in something and you're righteous about it, sometimes you're going to have to undermine a lot of things and put yourself at risk and just take that risk. You got to roll the dice on yourself sometimes. And honestly, I think just learning about La Chicanda, it was a beautiful message. And it just sucks that it happened now and not then. Because you ask yourself, If it would have been implemented, like I said, hypothetically, if it would have been implemented, Pete Wilson would have got involved, and he went back and told the Cardenales, hey, the Mexican Mafia's involved, and Pete Wilson said he's going to help us out. I asked myself, would they would have changed their mind, or would it have been the same outcome? And if they didn't change their mind and they said, you know what, let's go forward with this and see how it works. Let's see what happens. You know, what would it would look like now if they would have came out 20 years ago?
Ooh,
Yeah.
If a C would have came out, well, it would have depended on like what when you're talking about, like if it would have been Corny and them still up in the Bay, it probably would have been the same effect. Corny, Skip, those C's right there, they're not really up for peace, bro. You know what I mean? They have that mentality. They came back from those old wars back in the 70s and 80s. They've been through it. A lot of them have committed the ultimate sacrifice in those wars. You know, a lot of these youngsters, they haven't really been in none of that stuff, so they can't really understand it. You know, they don't understand. They might hear about certain things in history and make a mental note of it, but when you're in the trenches and you're out there and you're fighting and you've been a part of these wars, you've either dropped bodies or you stabbed somebody or been stabbed. It's a little different, bro. It rings home a little bit different with you, man. You know, there's a lot of C's, like I believe I told you the other day, that when it comes to the peace treaty, and there's Sureños as well, Mexican Mafia members as well. There's a lot of them that had been through those wars where they're like, man, what about all the brothers that died? I didn't sign up for this. When I became a C, it was because I believed in the cause. You know, the way that, you know, I was fighting for a purpose. We were in the middle of a struggle. It wasn't to make peace with, you know, these same individuals killed, you know, people that I knew, brothers of mine, you know what I mean? So, and that's on both sides. You know, my guy that I talked to, a couple of different Sureños that I've talked to over the past have said the same thing. A lot of them were like, you know, the peace treaty, I don't know, it's a weird thing, you know what I mean? We've been in this war, but a lot of this younger generation, they don't really understand it. And that's why they, you know, they take it to another level, and it's gone beyond a peace treaty. These guys are brothers out there now, which is, you know, depending on how you look at it, it could be a good thing too. They're not out there killing each other no more. So
yeah, but you also know the game of you know, keep your enemies close and your friends closer. So if they're gonna be acting like brothers, it's just a matter of getting close. So now that they're on the yard together, they're in more vulnerable positions than they think. Yeah, they can have their entourages and big old guard walls around them of soldados, but doesn't mean that thing can't erupt and people can't get hit. We've already seen a couple of carnales and a couple Mexican Mafia members lose their life on the yard. So the possibility is still. Remember, there ain't no more door policy, bro. Now you got to go to the yard and see this man for yourself, and let's hope nothing aggravates those old emotions. But still, though, I was fascinated with this chapter because, you know, obviously I talked about Rafa and his situation, how he lost his career, but he was doing it for something that he believed in, even though he went about it the wrong way. I still feel like there was two situations. A lot of these carnales were up there fighting for these positions and these vacancies, but a lot of the times it's the egos that are hindering the progress and hindering the growth. You know what I mean? Like Smiley felt like he was a person that can reorganize the organization. He felt like he could refine it. He felt like he could make changes and do a lot of revisions to make it different and prosperous. But you got these dudes stuck in the old ways and the old mentalities. Like, nah, bro, we don't see none of that. We don't want none of that done. We're not trying to disturb the peace and what we already have. But why not if it's already a struggle? Why not? Because D Facility already had its own problems before Smiley showed up. And he felt like he was in the position of authority and education to say, you know what? D Facility needs me here to fix this. Yeah. I just think that's where his downfall was at. But that's everybody's downfall in these organizations. When you become a certain level of authority, you automatically become like you know the answers. Half the time you don't even know the answers, because half the time I didn't know the answers, but I had to act on it because people depended on me to run these yards. And then that's when you're either going to become careless, you're going to become arrogant, or you're going to become indecisive because you're overwhelming yourself, not realizing how much power is given to you and you don't know how to use it. And
Right.
I think that's what destroyed a lot of Carnales careers, a lot of Norteños careers, and I think that's going to be the continuance of destroying one another is the way we fight amongst each other, civil war after civil war. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
And like the Carnales and I'm pretty sure you're around like when the street regiments went at it, the NRs and the Carnales had their own street regiments and fighting stuff like that, bro.
The C's in the NR.
Yeah,
Well,
remember?
yeah, I don't know. I don't remember getting to that far, but I remember when there was a lot of rogue NR members that were pushing that agenda. And then we started to weed those individuals out. We started targeting them. Yeah, I mean, I guess lightweight they started to try to function as if they were their own entity, but we stumped that out real quick, bro. You know, we knew who all the leaders were, the ones that were really pushing that propaganda. You know, the with all due respect, you know, if you're watching DK, I still got love for you, boy, but the DKs and the what you call it from Gilroy, Pee Wee from Gilroy, you know, those individuals were Jasper from Chole. Those were the guys that were pushing it, you know, creating more. Those were the catalysts, bro, that
Yeah.
were creating more of that mindset of those NR members that felt like we have established ourselves, we've established our own right within, you know, within the cause to think for ourselves. We no longer have to take direction from the NF. But you know, that all got it was very brief and temporary. But yeah, I remember when it happened.
Yeah, I remember them writing it in La Historia. I would get filters to study and memorize. And there was one time somebody came from Pelican Bay and it was a different history. It was a more in-depth history. And I remember reading about it and they said, you know, a couple carnales got speared, but then some carnales paroled and were taking out these NR regiments that were trying to come up and take over the regular carnales regiments. And I was like, oh no, I never heard about a civil war until this filter. But I ain't gonna lie to you, man. There was times where I even let the power get to my head on the yard, and I told myself, and I used to tell some homies, like, bro, like we're the ones out here, we're the ones running these yards, we're the ones making the big sacrifices, we're the ones bringing dope. That all we're doing is shooting them some dope and some reports, you know, some yearly reports. Like,
Yeah,
why do we need them when we're doing
I'm
everything
gonna
ourselves?
I'm gonna play the devil's advocate, right? I understand what you're saying because me, you know, me, I've been both a hermano and a C. So I've been, you know, on that side of it right there where I felt like I was just a torpedo out there doing their dirty work. But at the same time, you know, that's one way of looking at it. But, you know, you also got to remember that there was somebody that started this. You know, there was somebody that started it, and there's somebody that paved the way somewhere along the way. And a lot of these older guys that are sitting back in these cells now that are barking orders, they're the ones that were out there at one time that were doing the same thing.
Yeah,
They've just they're slammed down now. They're in the shoe program. They're validated, and they're no longer able to get out there and do these things because at one time they did, but that's how they got there. You know what I mean? I think a lot of the times, sometimes that's lost, bro. It's just like you get frustrated with like, man, you know, we're sitting back here. We're doing all this shit for these cats, these old ass dudes, man. Most of them are all dope fiends. And why don't we just, you know, why don't we just push back, man, and just and create our own thing? You know what I'm saying? Why are we giving them all our money? Why are we out here making all these sacrifices for them when they're just these guys are a bunch of old guys in the cell somewhere, Pelican Bay, locked up. You know, I think it gets lost in all that. So I understand because again, I've been both. I've had the opportunity to be a hermano for like 6 years and then a C for another 10 years. So I understand.
yeah. Well, you're right though. You're very right. That's why a lot of my videos lately have been like, hey, we gotta respect our elders, bro. They did it because I reached that point at one time or twice or maybe multiple. Like, man, forget I ain't shooting no riot. I ain't shooting no money. I ain't doing nothing, bro. And then but I got a lot of flack for that, and I got investigated when I came back to Cali for doing that exact same thing, and that's what put me in a bad bind with the homies. But
Yeah.
if you notice the pattern with this video, I said I admire Smiley as well. Even though I felt like Pantera got caught up in the crossfire trying to conflict with this individual, and maybe if he would have went about it different, followed different protocols, and not react because of this individual overreacting, he probably still have his career and not get caught up in the Civil War. But if you notice the pattern, I favor the individuals who are willing to step up and do what they got to do. Never mind the rules, never mind the protocol. If they felt like it was right, if they felt like it was important, if they felt like they can make a difference and make a change, then go ahead and become that leader. But
Yeah.
sometimes when the message is clear that I'm telling everybody, you can try to become that leader for a righteous reason, but it can still go wrong and you still lose your career over it. Smiley, yeah, after watching your video, he went about it in 200 and some thousand ways wrong. But it's in simple fact, I still was sympathetic to his situation. He felt like he was capable. So why keep a man and hold a man back who might have made a difference if they allowed him to? The only problem is he just started bullying people, thinking that he was above everybody. The boss all bosses concept, nah, I disagree with that. We've seen that not work plenty of times. You know, it's not we weren't as big as the Italian mafia for that to take place. But
Yeah.
still, I do encourage people sometimes like that in those situations. Like if you think you can make a change and make a difference, why not allow somebody to make a difference? See if it works. I would have said, all right, let's see what you got. If you can make a change and make a difference, go ahead. But if you don't, you know we're gonna knock you down because we got the majority votes. That would have been a good option.
Yeah, I think what it was, bro, is Smiley was a radical. Everybody, he had a chance, he had an opportunity to everybody seen how he functioned. His ideas were radical. And I think that's why Pantera got involved. I don't know if you know this either. It's off topic, but Pantera, he killed my dad, right? It's crazy. Yeah, here I am. I find this out as I'm coming up, but here I am aspiring to be an NF member to find out that these are the same hands that took my biological father. But anyways, and I never held it personally against him, but I found out later on, man, by accident. But Pantera, he was the whole reason why he ended up getting caught up in that conflict is because he was one of the ones that stepped up and was like, you know what, that dude will never be the boss of all bosses as long as I'm a part of this organization. It'll never happen. Otherwise, I wouldn't be a part of this organization. But he let it be known, and a lot of people felt the same. This dude's floating ideas around about, come on, man, you're a tyrant and you're self-absorbed. You're just thinking about yourself, what you can get. Let's hear more about your ideas. And Smiley, with all due respect, Smiley pulled me. He recruited, but he's not the sharpest tool in the shed, bro. He's really not, man. I mean, he's the kind of individual, me knowing him, me being around him personally, him recruiting me. He's the kind of C that's self-absorbed. He likes the attention. He wants all the youngsters, all the Norteños to know that, I'm this big, high-ranking NF leader. And he's the kind of dude that just so many things that were wrong with his conduct. The kind of dude that will openly, just give somebody a verbal tongue lashing on the tier. Don't matter who's listening, enemies, the Woods, the Africanos, Sureños, just everybody, just cut you down, beat you down on the tier. He's the kind of see that if he's on the tier talking to another carnal, and you're just a young Norteño, man, just trying to either reach out or converse with him or ask him something. Hey, you see I'm on the tier talking to my carnal? You know what I'm saying? Don't ever interrupt me like that. Don't you ever do that? Those kind of reprimands, man, it's just like, come on, bro. That's those youngsters, that's what those are the up and comings, and that's the wrong, it's just the wrong way to be. There's a lot of C's from that old school that were like that. DC was another one. A lot of people don't know DC personally, but DC was like, Norteños, they're outsiders. They're not, the familia is everything to DC. But a Norteño, you're an outsider. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know you, man. You know what I'm saying? You're we're doing what we're doing for people like you, but he had a real crazy way of there's no canalismo there, bro. Norteños would get around him and they would feel that separation. Trust me, they'd feel it. He'd make them feel it. There's a lot of old school C's that were like that. I was never like that. You know what I mean? But I know I'm getting off topic, man. But yeah, Smiley, he shot himself in the foot, man, and he would have went around. He would have went about it a different way, instead of, everybody could see a mile away what he was trying to do. Take a position for himself, create a position that wasn't even part of the leadership. And I don't know, he had radical ideas. So what are you gonna do? So let's talk about it, man. What are you gonna do? So you're gonna run the organization. What are you gonna do? Ask him a question like that, he ain't gonna even be able to answer you, bro. Well,
Also, it sounded good, but I think when he would have got there, he'd have just been a tyrant. He'd have been like, "Bro, I'm a boss. What I say goes. Nobody questions me." That's how usually people become when they reach these levels of authority. They don't know how to use them at the end of the day, and they'll probably more likely, if he would have gained that, he would have probably hurt the organization probably a lot more. That's the way.
absolutely.
But I like how you pointed out this fact, how you said Carnales looked at Norteños as outsiders because before the end of hostilities, before they made it at the yard and suspended the whole end soul status, even though they were in prison on the yard, that's how we felt. That's how all
Yeah,
the letters I got felt from Mondo. It was more or less like, hey, do this, do this, do that, and do it in a timely fashion. We need this amount of money to these carnales on this C payroll every month. No excuses. I'm like, first of all, I like, bro, we still go on lockdown for like 3 to 6 months at a time, possible year. If us in the South are going to war, like, how do you expect me to generate revenue? And then one time I asked him that, I was like, bro, like, how else do you want me to do it on lockdown? And he said, there's a lot of homies out there that are privileged to money. Ask him to get you some green dots. You take care of it and turn it into this and send it to our books. I was like, bro, you know how dumb I felt putting out an implementation? Hey, bro, can anybody contribute? The contribution word that we use instead of, hey, bro, pay a little fine real quick, pay a little tax. Anybody's willing to fork over like $50 green dots so we can send to the carnales in the back. But yeah, we're on lockdown, starving. We're on
yeah,
lockdown. We went to canteen. We're over here doing burpees, sweating, and with no food in our house. We felt like outsiders for the longest anyways. I felt like an outsider for a long time. Like, they don't care what I say. I don't even think they really cared about the letters that I sent them, other than who got deemed, why he got deemed, and if it was appropriate, what laws was it based under, where's my feria, and are you sending anything to the back, who's coming to the back. Those are the only things that they ever respond to me for. So I was like, never mind the questions that I asked, never mind the approach, never mind how to conduct this investigation. Now you're educated, that's your yard, figure it out, just don't make a bad call. We were outsiders for a long time, but you'll see a lot of these young Norteños that still look up to them, not realizing that they're still going to be looked at as outsiders. They're
yeah,
still going to be looked at as foot soldiers. You're going to go in there and say you're active. You're going to go in there and see these grown men that are legends. You're going to be like, yeah, that's the big homie. I'm going to do whatever he says. But to him and his brothers, bro, you're an outsider, bro. You're
yeah,
qualified. We're going to use you until we ain't got no use for you no more. Like, you're not part of this organization. They don't see the difference that the NF in itself, the organization in itself, is a mafia. They're doing their own thing. The Norteño struggle and what's going on with all the Norteños in yard, that in itself is its own entity with its own struggle, with its own purpose and goals. There's a big separation, but they just throw sand over that line that's drawn in the sand so nobody can see it, because it's all about equality.
yeah. I was fortunate enough to be a part, to back in the late '80s, early '90s. I was fortunate enough to come in and be a part of it when the cause was still a beautiful thing. It was still a cause. That there was still, you know, it was different, bro. Everything was different from the way, like, I've said this before in some of my videos, but like the bonds, they were kept in secrecy. Everybody, you hear about them, and if you ever got to see a bond, you'd be like, dude, I got to fucking see a bond today. You know what I mean? I read Bond 3, but they were kept, in secrecy under wraps. It was like a sacred, um, these were sacred documents, man. That if you got to see him, you felt privileged, bro. To be an NR member meant something huge. It was like when you became an NR member, you reached the pinnacle in your career. Like, I accomplished something. It wasn't like, yeah, you think he'll make a good candidate to be at Hermano. They're just pulling anybody, mud suckers, bottom feeders, anybody now that raises their hand. But back in those days, it was like it was in secrecy. Even that, when I got recruited in Quinton back in '89, there was multiple people involved, and it was all done like on hush hush, and it was crazy, man. The atmosphere was different, the feeling was different, and we were deep back then, bro. We were deep. I did a spill the other day and talked about it, on that tribute to the homie that passed away, and the numbers, we were deep, man. There were so many NR members, the Carnales. It was just, we were all deep, and it was just a different time back then, like no other time. We were at our strongest point, bro, back in those days.
You see how you said the change when I got to prison, bro. If you sounded somewhat intelligent in your educational curriculum that you sent to your assistant maestro, and they got to the NT, and he's like, you know what? I think he knows what he's talking about when it comes to the basic essentials of CLCs and professionalism. We're gonna upgrade them to the bonds. So every week was a different bond. And then I didn't know anything about, like how you said, like in the past, how they were so sacred. I thought, they were just, once you were pulled, you were exposed to them. So now it's just like, hey, bro, you want to learn? You want to be educated? Or you want to start to become an insole? Here's the education bundle. Start studying. And then you get quizzed. And then when they felt like you were ready, all you had to do was memorize the format, the bonds, hold at least half of the CLC's positions. And just, maybe once if you get the opportunity to get blood on your hands, so be it. And all I had to do is just say, hey, Bubbles, can you stamp these dudes? Yeah, sure, go ahead. We'll just give them this PO box. All right, hey, bro, you guys are pulled. It was that easy during my time when I was in prison. That's how I was pulling a lot of people. And then when they would go bad, I'm like, oh, damn, like I made a mistake. You never know somebody's characteristics. Some people want it for all the righteous reasons. Some people want it for the wrong reasons. And then the wrong reasons make you look bad, but the righteous reasons make you look good on your resume when you're presenting it to become a karma.
Yeah.
When that realignment filter came out, like I said in my videos, they said specifically at the end, any hermano that's been out here for 5 to 8 years, that's been an hermano for 5 or 8 years, come to the back if you want to look for citizenship. And my celly was like, I'm gonna take it, bro. I got life anyways, bro. I'm just gonna go back there. And I was like, hell no, I got a date, bro. You crazy? That's a lifetime commitment right there. And I didn't want to take that risk. But sometimes there'll be days when I'm watching your videos or watching other videos, and I've admitted it on my YouTube channel. It's like, dude, I could have been somebody, but I made the fatal mistake of letting my ego get to my head. I made the fatal mistake of undermining carnales. Like, man, I don't really got to tell them everything that I'm doing. I'm just going to tell them the basic essentials, what they need to know on a need to know basis when they write me and I write them back. And I let it all get to me. And that's the pretty much the moral of this video today, is that we destroy ourselves. Sometimes it's the dirty politics in the organization that hurt us. But sometimes it's the mistakes we've made, whether it's breaking the rules, causing infractions, getting into civil wars, internal confrontation, or just thinking that we're better than somebody else when we're really not. And we forget that there's a line of a command that we need to follow. Those rules for law and order set in place to follow to keep us secure, to keep us safe in these jails. But somehow, some way, we go back to our selfish needs, our selfish ways of thinking, and that's what I did, and that's how I caused my own downfall. And but in all your history and in the book, there's a lot of people in our history that's done that same thing, bro. So that's the kind of message I want to give to the kids, bro. If you're gonna go in there, you're doing it for the greater good of something else. If you're gonna continue to remain active, but we're telling you right now, sometimes politics do get the best of you. When you get good at something, and you realize, like, man, I'm always getting my way because I'm doing it this way. I'm strategically planning it this way. I'm in this homeboy's ear. I got this homeboy's blessings and favores. It'll come back. It comes back around. You're gonna get put in a predicament where you can't utilize that same juice, and then you cause your own downfall.
Yeah, absolutely. But everything's for a reason. It's not a fail that you didn't become somebody. The path that you the path that was drawn out for you, bro. You know what I mean? It got you to where you are today. If you would have became a C, you never know what would happen. You might be sitting in prison with a life sentence right now, bro. You know what I'm saying? So I understand what you're saying, but yeah, man, it's not a fail. I mean, I got, for everything that I've done, all the years that I gave to that organization, all the sacrifices that I made, gave up my kids, destroyed relationships. It somehow, some way affected the decisions that I made that kept me in the criminal element. I got nothing to show for it. I'm 50 years old, man. I got nothing to show for it. I took away a lot of good things from the NF. You know what I mean? I still hold on to some of the things that I learned that still made me who I am. I still, to this day, they'll probably never go away. The discipline, the way that I look at things, some of the knowledge that I gained, the things that I learned when it was mandatory to educate myself. You know, all those things I still carrying with me today. So, you know, there's some things that I took positive, but there's nothing to gain from that lifestyle unless you want to spend the rest of your life in prison, or you're one of those ones that didn't make it to be 50, you know, because you're laying in the grave somewhere.
Yes.
So
And that's how we'll end this video. I hope you guys had a fun time. It was an entertaining time for me and Boxer. We left it on a positive note. And both of us are going to continue to try to be an example to everybody, staying out of trouble, staying away from the gangs. We talk about it, but we just need to shed light to the realities of what's really going on. And just give you guys, entertaining topics for you guys to, enjoy while you guys are at home watching the both of us on each of our channels. So with that being said, like I always say, it's one life, one chance. We only got one chance to do this right. Let's get it done.
that's right.